Influencer Active. We're happy to be with you. Welcome to everybody on the call, and welcome to everybody who is watching the recorded session. We are planning to hopefully make these a regular series of events. So we'd encourage you up front to send us any ideas, any topics that you'd like us to talk about regarding influencer marketing. Gavin Heaton and myself are here today to chat with you. We are both from Influencer Active, so no hiding that. We're not here to obviously sell you the platform. What we're here to tell you a little bit about is influencer marketing for small and medium business. You can see our backgrounds there. Gavin and I have actually worked together for 25 odd years. Gavin with a strong background in strategy development, product development and technology. He's done a lot of anybody who's been on the marketplace, Gavin's done a lot of the technical work behind the marketplace. Some of you, I think, possibly follow me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn profile will be up on the screen in a moment. It's there. Feel free to follow me. I think I've just crossed 2.6 million followers now, and recognized by LinkedIn a few times. So what we're here to talk about tonight, influencer marketing for small and medium business. What we'd like to cover is four very quick topics. We're going to keep this short, sharp. If you do have any questions you'd like to pose to Gavin and I, please put them into the chat, and we'll do our best to answer all the questions. So we're going to be looking at where to find influencers for your brand, how it's usually done, where to use influencers for maximum impact for your brand and your marketing activities, how to find the most relevant influencers, and also what you should expect from them. And in that, we'll cover some do's and don'ts as well. So I'd like to throw to Gavin just to give you a little bit about why we're here for the webinar and a little bit about the background of influencer marketing.
Great, and hello everyone. Thanks for joining us. Just some quick background on influencer marketing and growth and where it can work. And what it's really clear is that this is a growing marketplace. So in 2021, we're expecting about 15.1 billion globally to fit into the influencer marketplace. So it's a growing area of influence within marketing. But there's also a lot of platforms and new agencies being developed and launched into the market, into the world every single week, every single month, every single year. As you can see here, back in 2015, there was only about 190, and only 4 or 5 years later, we've got about 10 times the number of agencies and platforms out there. So there's a lot of recognition that this is a growing industry, because it's really not that surprising, because what we do know is that when we're thinking about the way that we buy and why we buy things, we actually much prefer to find other people who are like ourselves, or people who give us a sense of aspiration and maybe even a bit of glamour in our lives. But if you're a marketer and if you're a business owner, one of the challenges we face is that the marketplace for influence, for conversation, for advertising is very fragmented. So if we try to figure out how we reach our audiences and how we actually engage our audiences, it's really, really difficult. And this is where influencers really have built an opportunity for us all to be able to reach and engage their audiences as well as our own. And when we think about it from a marketing and a media perspective, the way that a marketer understands a sense of engagement is through what we call paid, earned, owned and shared media. And together, things like paid media, which is your sponsored tweets, lead generation, sponsored posts, advertising, your earned media, which is like blogging, LinkedIn, engagement, partnerships, and owned media, which is your own websites, your own content and so on, and then shared media, which is the shared channels through Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and so on. You bring them all together, and that's what gives you an influencer landscape. So we need to think through how all that fits together in order for us to be able to drive the kind of marketing and business outcomes we're hoping to achieve through our influencer marketing. So AJ.
So let's then look at where to find these influencers. And again, we are from Influencer Active. It is a new platform. And there are really three channels. There are the platforms, there are the influencers themselves, and there are the celebrities. The platforms are really the platforms that are out there today, and I'm not going to mention any of the names, but there are dedicated influencer platforms out there, but they act very much like intermediaries. They're the gatekeepers between you and your brand and the influencers. What we're going to show you is Influencer Active flips that totally on its head. There are the individuals. You can do the hard yards, you can do the hard work, and you can go out there and you can directly, if you can get in contact with them, you can reach out to individuals yourself, and you can try and negotiate deals with individual influencers. And then, of course, there are the celebrities. We all know the celebrities. We all know the big names that you can hire, that you obviously need very, very big marketing budgets to engage. So let's just drill into each one of those very quickly, and have a look at a few of the pros and cons, if you like, for each one of those. The platforms, as I mentioned, these dedicated platforms act as gatekeepers. They sit between you and your brand and the influencers. Typically, they have a panel of influencers, many of them not too many. They're out there, they're scraping profiles from social media sites, they're farming out your brief. Most of the platforms out there have a subscription model. You need to join them. You need to pay a monthly subscription just to be on there. You need to submit your brief. You need to give them your budget up front, because in a lot of cases, that's how the influencers are deciding whether they want to work with you and your brand or not. There's often a lot of hidden campaign fees that go along with those platforms. What Influencer Active does is we challenge that entire model. We've opened up the influencers. When you jump onto Influencer Active, and we'll have a little bit of a look in a moment, you can see the influencers and you can engage them directly, one-to-one. No middleman, no gatekeeper, no hidden fees. With the individuals, again, you can go out there and negotiate ad hoc deals with specific influencers. You can try and reach them. Often it's very difficult to get to them. It relies on personal connection with a lot of them. And there's also the challenges of where they're located, whether they'll talk to you, whether they've actually got an agent in between you and them, because they don't want to risk their profile. They don't want to risk their brand that they've built either. And then we've got the celebrities. Now, some of you might know some of the celebrities on LinkedIn. Here we're talking about some of the more, if you like, famous people. I always use the Kim Kardashian example. These are high-profile celebrities. They demand big budgets for doing posts for you. Obviously, and most of them have consumer-oriented specialties. They're the ones out there selling the handbags and the weight loss pills and the bikinis. They're typically very expensive, and in a lot of cases for business brands, what we're finding is consumer celebrities don't really align to construction firms or real estate firms or tech companies. A good example is that I think, Gav, we've got an example. Some of you on the call might follow Strati Georgiopoulos as an example on LinkedIn. Good friend of mine, lots of respect. So if we compare him there to Kim Kardashian as an example, currently she's dropped her influencer rates. They used to be around $1 million per post, now charging about $300,000 to $500,000 per individual post. If you compare that on the right side to a business influencer, single LinkedIn post for around $100 mark. When you start to look at return on investment, you engage somebody like Strati, 700,000 followers on LinkedIn, one sale for $100 product, as an example, you've got immediate ROI on that investment that you've made. Kim, on the other hand, for that same $100 product, you're talking about 3,000 plus sales if you're actually going in at a $300,000 post. Maybe 219 million social media followers, but the engagement statistics and the work that's required to see that ROI are significant compared to business influencers. And we're a very different breed of influencer, and that's what we're going to talk about.
So influencers and when to use them. The thing to remember about influencers is that they're not a silver bullet. So they don't solve all of your marketing or business challenges, but they do provide you with a very specific way of working. And what I want to step you through is a little bit about the way that marketers plan their communications when they're thinking about how to engage with influencers. And you're probably all quite aware of this, which is this is a marketing funnel. So at the top level, we have awareness, and then we work all the way through down to this enroll stage, which is where you've got a decision to purchase. But when you're working with an influencer, you're actually asking them to do certain things. So at the top level, at an engagement level, you're looking for brand awareness. So there we're looking for breakthrough posts and content that's going to reach and connect with their audiences. When we're thinking about brand engagement, which is that second level down, we're looking really for engaging content that's going to build trust, that's going to teach your prospects about the quality of your products and services and the way the brand features that you have. In that third level, which is around this idea of enchanting your customers or your prospects, this is about generating demand for your products. And so here, what you're looking for when you're looking at influencers is engaging influencers to create offers, introductions, things like this, a webinar, trials, steeper or deeper connection with your product space. Then once you get beyond that stage, that's really where we're looking for the enrollment or the purchase. This is where we've got click-throughs, sign-ups, registrations, or purchase. A good example here might be a trial offer that you may make an offer to prospects. It could be that you are looking for a registration or purchase for a particular white paper or for a product of some kind. And then the final part is when you've got someone who has become a customer and you're looking to build loyalty. And so this is where you can start to look at advocacy, testimonials, delivering the brand promise, and so on. Okay, I'm just getting a few questions starting to come through. And we're having some people who seem to be having some issues. If you're fine and you can see the slides and the sound is fine, and hopefully that's the majority of you, then great. If you are unable to tap through to the video, just try refreshing your screen and seeing if that works. Okay, just to continue, then what we're when you're thinking about the marketing funnel in terms of your own business, then what you're going to find is that you need to think about what you want your influencers to actually do for you. So when you're briefing an influencer and you're looking for engagement, then what we want you to think about is what media you have, what message you have, and how you want that to come across. And what you want to brief the influencer to do is to provide media that engages the audience and encourage that sort of a level of engagement. If you want your influencer to educate and sort of move into that interest and consideration stage of the customer journey, you want the influencer to help drive conversation, to entice their audience with your content, so that when you're thinking about, or when they're thinking about buying or engaging with your product or brand, that they're actually thinking about in a very specific way around the product that you've got and the problem that it solves. The next level down is where we're starting to encourage action, and this is the enchant stage. So here what you want your influencer to do is to really focus on driving and directing the audience to do something, a call to action of some kind. So I would encourage you to please take a trial, attend a webinar, download a white paper, whatever it happens to be. So this is the enchant stage. Once you have the influencer working and your audience coming through and taking on those suggestions, the really hard work now is with the small or medium business owner, and getting the purchase to close. So that means you have to have a great website. It means you have to have a great offer. It means you have to match the message that you've got on your landing page with the content that's going out there on those social media channels. So there's very little that an influencer can do to actually push a sale over the line. That's really the hard work that you need to do. And then finally, once you've got a customer, what you can do is work with an influencer to tell the advocacy story. So tell a really great story about the product experience, about the way that the influencers have worked with your brand, what the brand does for your customers. Really start to tell that story. A great example could be sharing interviews, conducting live LinkedIn live sessions, doing product walkthroughs. All these kind of things are really valuable in terms of that enlistment part of the funnel. So hopefully that all makes sense. We're seeing some great questions, so keep them coming through, and we'll get around to them in just a few minutes towards the end of the seminar.
Great, Gav. So let's look at how to find influencers. And what we talk about when we talk about finding influencers is finding those influencers who are in your zone. Now, what we don't necessarily mean by that is influencers who are in your time zone or who are in your country, because influencers, predominantly business influencers, have global audiences. What we found when we talk about in your zone is you can actually find influencers who do the same job as you, who work in the same industry as you. All our business influencers are just that. They're business people. We have influencers from coaches to executive search recruiters to tech evangelists. We have the whole gamut of business influencers. So what you can do using a platform like Influencer Active is actually not only work with people that you already follow, that you respect, and you can see the engagement that they get on business platforms like LinkedIn or Twitter. They also have very strong networks within the industry that you might be wanting to tap into because they work in that industry themselves. So one of the other interesting things we're finding as a 6-month-old platform now is often brands engage influencers not based on their audience size. I used 2 examples before. Myself, 2.6 million followers. Strati with 700,000 followers. We have quite different audiences as well. I'm in tech and innovation. Strati's in executive search, and he's got a lot of C-level executives in his network across North America. So you're looking at the platform right now, and what you can see there is you can actually filter to find the right sort of influencer, not only by audience size, which is highlighted there on the left. You can actually segment by the industries that we work in as well, the platforms that we specialize in. You can see some other filters there like speakers, etc. If price and budget is an issue, that's something you can filter by as well. But finding these influencers, we give you multiple ways to find the right influencer for your brand. The one interesting thing that you're seeing right here, and we'll encourage you all to sign up because it's free, there's no subscription to join the Influencer Active Marketplace, is the prices have all been set by the influencers themselves. There's no middleman, there's nobody who's said to them, this is what you need to charge. So you can actually go through the marketplace and sometimes find some really good deals.
And I might also say there, AJ, one of the interesting things about this type of marketplace is that it does give you access to influencers of various sizes and shapes in terms of their network reach. Now, often what we will want to do is we want to go with the biggest possible reach. But what we're finding is that it's not always those people with the big reach that have the most engagement, as we saw with the Kim Kardashian and Strati Georgopoulos example. What we often find is those with smaller audiences are actually much more engaged. So if you know who you want to work with and you know which industry they specialize in, then it can be a fantastic way of activating your brand by working with a very focused, small reach audience influencer. And when we say small, we're not talking about minuscule. We're talking about people with between 10 and 30,000 followers on one of their platforms. So it's still a significant reach, and often what we find, especially for transactions, is that we're not talking about a $5 or a $10 or even $100 type value product. We're talking about products that are valued in the thousands of dollars, or the tens, or the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So there's a very interesting model that is emerging in that space.
So let's look at what to expect from these influencers. So now you've selected the influencer off the marketplace that that you want to work with. We often get the question, well, what do we expect?
Yeah, what we do know is that not everything works. So you've got to try a few different things, and you've got to be willing to test and learn. So a good approach to your strategy is to think through and document the plans and your expectations so that you know when something does work and you can continue to repeat that. Another point is that you do need to give the algorithm some time to work. So yes, it's fairly instantaneous, but you may need, depending on which platform you're using, but say you're working with LinkedIn, you need to give maybe an hour or two for the algorithm to kick in and for the feeds to start to work and distribute your content into a range of different marketplaces. But also remember, it's social media, so it can be unpredictable. So if we knew how to make things go viral, then we would be making things go viral all the time. Sometimes you do need to work on things that are going to really build an audience over a period of time rather than just doing one-offs.
And we can touch on some of the tips and tricks to actually help that as well, I think, in this next slide. So very happy if whoever's watching, you want to screen capture. These are really, if you like, my tips and tricks that I share with. So when I get booked on Influencer Active, these are some of the things that I suggest to brands that I'm working with. So some of the things like we've noticed that videos that are square rather than 16 by 9 seem to work better. The majority of videos on LinkedIn are watched without sound, so adding subtitles to your videos really helps significantly. One of the other things is to engage with your audience. I find it's not only polite, but it keeps the conversation going by answering questions, adding additional information, liking comments, being respectful for the people that are engaging on your content, not just ignoring them and letting those questions go unanswered. Engage your entire team. We had a brand in Finland that booked a couple of our influencers just recently, and one of the things they did every time a post went up, they made sure that their entire organization, 200 odd people, were engaging on the post as well, just to keep that conversation going. Some of the things that I suggest to brands not to do is spend the first 7 to 10 seconds of your video with a beautiful flying animation and a website and put all of that at the end, your logo and your brand and your image. You need to get to the content. You need to get to it quickly to stop somebody just scrolling past. You've got that 3 seconds. Often when it's overproduced, sometimes videos that do tend to look more homemade, handmade, shot on your mobile phone, tend to do as well because they have that authentic feel to it. One of the other things that I do try and talk to a lot of brands about is also not over scripting it. We understand our audiences. The influencers on the platform understand their audiences, and we also have a voice to those audiences. So the more it can come from the voice of the influencer that you've engaged rather than a straight cut and paste of the copy that you want, or the 40 made up hashtags that actually have no followers on some of these platforms. Often provide the media, provide the content, let the influencer work their magic, use their voice to actually help engage their audiences and their followers. So that's just a few little tips and tricks that we recommend. But working with the influencer that you select on the platform, they'll give you their own ideas and suggestions. So we are coming to time, and Gav, I think you said we've got a few questions. As I mentioned earlier, we'd encourage all of you go to the marketplace. It's free. There is no subscription fee. All you have to do is sign up. I think it's first name, last name, email address, and you're in. You'll have an account, and you can start engaging influencers immediately to work with for your brand.
Yeah, what have we got there, AJ? But we've got some questions coming through. So I'm just going to. I'll start at the top of the list, and we'll work our way down.
Okay.
What have we got here? So here we go. I have questions for the webinar. So strategy of recruiting followers, so optimal budget, learning within reasonable limits, and some features. So this is a really good question. This is about, how do we build an audience? So some people have come to us and said, okay, I want to be a thought leader in my industry and I'd like to help grow my audience. So working with an influencer to help grow your own profile, so a personal branding strategy, is very, very useful there. What you might find actually on our platform is that we have some personal branding coaches that are there. So you can actually engage some of those coaches to run a program with you on how to build your personal brand. And then you can engage them on that program, and then you can work with them to amplify your work into their networks as well. So there's a lot of different ways you can approach that challenge. What about budgets there, AJ? What would you suggest?
Well, I think that the interesting thing with budgets is, as I said earlier, all our influencers set their own prices. So you can browse through the marketplace. You'll select the influencer that works for the budget that you've got in mind. That's, we have influencers that range anywhere from, I think, about $25 for a post up to I think over $1,000 for one single post. Now that might not fit your budget. One of the other things that we recommend within your budget though is think about that funnel that Gavin showed before. We're finding most brands that actually work with the 5 bundle posts. We have influencers that have 20 bundles, 30 bundles, but 5 bundle posts actually allow you to build that pipeline, build that awareness across a sustained period of time than just a one-off, the silver bullet. So the next question there, Gav, how to negotiate and arrive at a good rate. Well, there is no negotiation on Influencer Active. You don't have to disclose your budget up front. What the influencers have done is the influencers have said what they will charge for posting for you. So we've simplified that process. We like to think we've streamlined that process. There is no negotiation. The rates are the best rates that you will get because they're the rates that the influencers have set.
Another question.
The problem is had time connecting with influencers. So it is a really good question. Okay, in many cases, the brands work with the influencers to, if you like, curate a lot of the messaging, curate a lot of the comments as well. Unfortunately, it's just the way of social media. We still get a lot of people that come in and want to spam your posts and put up lots of spammy links off to other platforms and other sites. Most of the influencers that you work with, or all the influencers you work with on Influencer Active, will actually, you can engage with, you can work with them to help curate that post as well. But in the majority of cases, you're not losing control of the message itself in the post because you're providing that to the influencer as part of the brief that you're giving them when you book them. So the guidelines for the copy, the guidelines for the calls to action, you're going to give that to the influencer. They will put it into their voice, but they're not fundamentally going to change that message itself. So it's still your message that's going out there. Can we turn a media company to an influencer company in only one domain, such as mining? Look, I think absolutely. The answer is absolutely yes. It's about finding the influencer that potentially works in that space. Gavin, off the top of my head, I don't know if we've got anybody specifically in mining, but I do know that we have a number of influencers on the platform that are very specifically technology focused. You could engage, for instance, Daniel Burris, who is a global futurist, a global tech futurist, who's on the platform. He has his listings. That's what he works in. That's the industry he works in. That's the following that he's got. So I think absolutely you can find influencers that work in those specific industry verticals.
Yeah, oil and gas, I think we have a couple of influencers.
Yes, we do.
So, cloud-based solutions business.
I can't disclose the brand, but we've just engaged one of the world's biggest cloud solutions based organizations. We can't announce it at the moment because they're making a mass booking across several influencers on the platform. But absolutely, it's what's your call to action with that? What's the media that you've got to share as well? This one particular cloud-based organization who may or may not have an association with a platform that starts with LI or IN. Their call to action, what they're trying to do is actually they're looking at a hybrid cloud solution, webinar, very, very technical. Again, their objective in engaging influencers is to get sign-ups to a webinar to start with.
Yeah, and so what I would really encourage you to think about is what is the strategy piece. Going back to that slide that we showed earlier around the marketing funnel. Consider the journey of your customers and where an influencer is best able to activate that for you, and then engage the influencer over a series of posts to really start to drive that. Remember, it may take a little while, but that's one of the best ways of doing it is strategically.
That's going to be about a 5-week campaign.
Yeah. How long does it take you to be an influencer, AJ?
Look, as Gavin said earlier, we do curate all the influencers on the platform. You need to have a minimum of 30,000 first level followers. We all work very, very hard on our networks, engaging with our networks, engaging with our following. There is no time frame. There really isn't. It takes time and it takes consistency. That's the best I can say is keep going.
So what I'd just like to sort of point out, we've just ticked over the 30-minute mark. So I'd like to be respectful of your time and let you know that that's now 30 minutes. But we will continue to answer these questions. And so feel free to stay on while it'll probably take us another 5 or 10 minutes to answer the questions.
That many?
Oh, maybe you can be faster. So this is an easy one. So yes, we can filter influencers by target country audience, sort of. So we can filter it by the location of the influencer. There's a map on the platform that you can use to filter. Unfortunately, most of our influencers don't or can't target their audiences because of the constraints of the platform. So it's social media, it will go wherever it wants to go, wherever the audience happens to be. But for example, you may want to do some sort of framing in your postings or in your briefings with the influencer around particular things. So you might say, for my US-based audiences, please do X, Y, and Z. And that's one way of filtering or structuring your brief in order to deliver a targeted country audience. Does that make sense, AJ?
Yeah, I've got nothing to add to that.
Okay.
Yeah, another good question. So we are building, and it's in beta at the moment, but we are building a campaign management tool. So I think the best idea to answer that question is if you do have an exhibition, an event coming up, you want to hire more than one at a time, we're making that easy for you. So I would suggest drop an email. Gavin, I think you can put the email address up there. Drop an email to us. We can discuss with you getting access to our campaign management system for booking multiple influencers at one time. So we are streamlining that process. It's coming very soon.
ROI.
ROI of an influencer versus another. Wow, that's an interesting question. I think the influencers on Influencer Active, it does come down to selecting the right influencer and working with somebody who not only has a voice in your particular industry vertical, because if they work in your industry vertical, the chances are their network are the sort of people that you want to get to as well. Again, we're not, as we said earlier, we're not responsible for sales. That's really on the brand side. What we're there to do is amplify your marketing and get that mass engagement with the brand and the activation and the call to action that you're actually looking for. So really the ROI and that calculation is on the brand side rather than the influencer side.
And what we would encourage you to do, though, is to document what your expectations are. So have a plan, write it out, put it in a safe space, and then test the audience and the activation that you work with. So that way you can say, okay, we expected this to generate 100 leads or 200 signups to a webinar. Run your campaign and then come back to it and say, okay, did we get those things? Did it work in the way we thought it would? Oh, and then sort of speak with the influencer as well and say, do you think this worked? Do you think, what could we do better next time, and so on. So treat this not as a silver bullet, like we said earlier. Treat it as a process that you're going to learn from, that you're going to grow, and then over time you'll be able to really build some marketing influencer smarts into your business.
Yeah, look, I think there's one good example for a webinar that I posted for somebody just recently. Their sign-up page was about 60 questions. And they came back to me and said, well, we didn't get as many people signing up to the webinar, but the friction between the post and that sounds really interesting, and then landing on a sign-up page that had about 60 questions, including, my bank account details sort of thing. It was that involved. People were dropping out and not signing up. So you do need to think about that call to action and the friction between the post and the awareness that you're building, and then how easy it is for them to engage with your brand. We're constantly adding to the influencers on the platform. We've got probably, from what you see up there at the moment, which is about 75, there's probably about another 35 that are onboarding at the moment. There's a full application process. It may be a little bit slower because it's not we don't let anybody in. The influencers do need to apply. They're vetted. We look at their profiles. We look at the posts. We look at the engagement that they get. So that does take a little bit of time, but we're always growing that register. And feel free to spread the word to those other influencers that you know out there on the platform that you'd like to see up there.
And as you can see in the link down the bottom of the screen there, you can actually just log in and apply to be an influencer straight from the platform as well.
Yep.
How do you know which influencer to work with?
Look, it takes a little bit of research. I think the people that are typically getting booked already have pretty good followers. I know the people that are booking me, for instance, have already been following me on LinkedIn. They approach me. They see my listing up there. And they book me because they see the engagement that I get. It does take a little bit of research, but at least we've brought them all into one place for you to actually not only click on their photo, but we all have our social media profile links as well. So then you can go and look at our public profiles. You can do a little bit of that research. You can use the filters on the left-hand side of the marketplace to also sort of narrow down influencers who work in your industry, because that's probably usually a good place to start. If you're trying to target construction or real estate, then you probably want to work with influencers, business influencers that already work in that industry as well.
Another question.
How do we add I don't know, Gav, you answer.
So I think that question is, how do we forecast potential revenue from, or ROI? I guess is an ROI question. So what's going to come out of an influencer campaign? So again, it takes a little bit of practice, but if you think about what it is you're trying to generate, if you think about that marketing funnel, then if you are going to be working with influencers that are only generating awareness, you're not going to get any sales. if you're going to be briefing them toward, and if you're not going to brief your influencers towards a consideration or a sign up kind of process, then you may get some sales, but you've got to brief accordingly. So my thinking on this one is you probably need to think about a longer term relationship with influencers so that you're actually building and engaging their audiences in a meaningful way. So, for example, if you've got if you're working with an influencer, say in the Middle East that has maybe, we've got like where we have maybe someone with 800,000 followers. Not all of their 800,000 followers are going to read every single post that they produce. So you're going to need to have multiple posts going out over time. You're wanting to build the conversation and in a variety of formats. So you might need to do a Q&A, you might need to do a LinkedIn Live, you might need to do some product media, you may need to do some webinar signups, and then you might actually get to a point where you've got enough trust and enough momentum to actually start to trigger sales. So there's a bit of work to be done there.
And I think, sorry, Gav, to add to that, it also comes down to how much you're willing to work the posts, if you like, how much you're willing to engage. I know we've got brands out there that have entire teams dedicated to influencer posts, answering questions, responding to questions, giving additional information where it's asked, even giving links out to where to purchase a product or a service. So it comes down to how much you're willing to work that as well with your team.
Great.
How can an influencer get in touch with a large brand? I think we sort of work around the other way. The brands are coming to us in 6 months. We've probably had about 60 to 100 brands that have already engaged influencers. We are working very hard. The two people on this call are working very hard to attract more brands. But it's not necessarily that our influencers reach out to the brands themselves. It's rather the other way around.
Oops.
You're more than welcome. Brands intent. Well, I think that does come down to your brief and some of the things that Gavin's already shared as far as, what is the strategy, what is your intent and what is your purpose and strategy, what's your call to action to brief. So once you book an influencer, you get a media upload and briefing form, very simple form. You fill in the fields and it does come down, and that is also a little bit of practice in how you brief the influencer and also how much scope you give the influencer to actually use their own voice. Now, in a lot of cases, if you're choosing an influencer that works in your industry, let's say it's in technology, and you choose to engage me as an example, I work in that industry. So there's a pretty good chance the influencer also understands your intent, understands your business focus and where you're trying to drive the engagement that you're working with them, and by doing that, you find that synergy very, very quickly. There's not probably too many brands, and again, we can turn down bookings as well. We don't take every single. If somebody comes to me with in financial services as an example, there are much better influencers. There are far better influencers on the platform that work in financial services that I happily recommend. And I know a lot of the other influencers also do that. If they do reject a booking, they will often say, but I would suggest you work with this person.
And the other thing to remember is that because these influencers on our platform, then we've actually got a stable of influencers. So we're not going out and finding influencers based on a brief from you. We already have access to these people. These people have put up their own profiles, their own offers, and so on. So when you can see them, you can actually go and check out their profiles. You can go into Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever their influence best fits, and you can look at what they do and what they talk about, and then you can see very quickly whether there's an alignment between the way that they speak, the way they engage their audiences, and your brand. So hopefully that does help. And then I think we've got one more question, and then we'll wrap. And we actually have, this is a really good question for us because we're just working on some of these right now.
Yeah, it's look, I think we answered this to a degree. It's less about the size of one's followers and network, and more about the voice that they have in the audience that do follow them. You know, again, if I use that financial services example, my background is tech and marketing and agency world. So I don't have a lot of people in financial services that follow me. So somebody who's got 35,000 followers but works in financial services, the chances are that they're going to have the right audience that you want your message to get to. As far as, additional performance, those sustained campaigns will always work better than a one-off post. Those bundled posts, and there's a lot of influencers in the marketplace right now that are doing discounts and are doing bundled deals. They're the ones to be looking for. So you're building that consideration, you're building that pipeline, which is leading to additional sales, rather than, as Gavin put it, that silver bullet that one post just gets you the sale. So I think it's that combination of not only the influencer in your industry, but also that sustained campaign that will get you that performance of your call to action, whatever you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and what I would encourage people to think about is using a variety of different styles of influencers to see what works best for your brand. So the rates are not prohibitive, and so there's a great opportunity right now to experiment and find what does work for your brand.
Absolutely.
Fabulous. Well, thank you everyone for your great questions tonight and for joining us. We'll put this video up onto the YouTube channel, so it will record and be posted on YouTube very soon, probably a couple of hours from now. So be sure to drop back, and again, feel free to contact us at our email address, and follow up with us. Follow AJ on LinkedIn, and follow us or contact us via email at any time. That would be great. Thanks for your time, and
thank you, everybody.
You enjoyed the webinar.
Thanks so much.